John Hadley is with us, who is his official title. He claims to be the Public Information Specialist with MSD. That's the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. What do you mean claim?
Oh, claim. Well,
claims to be.
Allegedly.
Yes.
Sean, what is going on with Know Your Zone? What's going on here?
So it's the month of April, and you know April showers bring May flowers.
Yes.
And so we're out here kicking off our Know Your Zone campaign, which is our flood awareness campaign that MSD pushes out there to make sure homeowners, renters, people are protected with make sure they have proper flood insurance.
Right.
So with Know Your Zone, everybody lives in a flood zone, either in a low, moderate, or high. And so we want people to know their zone.
Right.
So we're trying to educate people by going to knowyourzone.org. There's a bunch of tools there. We've got a bunch of social media videos. We even got Timmy Zell helping us out this year.
Oh my goodness!
Oh.
So it's even more confusing than ever. So this is very confusing because we live in an area where it floods. Oftentimes, you have a couple of rivers. You said everybody lives in a flood zone?
Yeah, everybody lives in a flood zone. I mean, there's a difference between
A flood zone and a floodplain. Okay.
Yes, and people think that because they hear the word floodplain, and well, if you live near a creek or a river, then you're prone to flooding. But that's not true. I mean, even if you live in and out here, let's say in Brentwood, flash floods could occur, and your house could be flooded.
Right.
So you want to make sure you're properly protected. And the weather here, I mean, St. Louis is just so unpredictable.
Right.
In the past several years now. I mean,
Right. So what are you looking for? What are the zones called?
You have a low, moderate, and a high.
Okay.
And a high is you're federally mandated to have a flood insurance.
And so you're telling me that there are homeowners out there who live in a high flood zone and don't know it.
Yeah. Well, if you live in a high flood zone, you will know it because you're federally mandated to have flood insurance when you're buying your home.
Okay. Right. that's
disclosed, and and you have to have flood insurance.
Okay.
But flood insurance is not. I mean, it's something that's not cheap.
Right.
So it's and it's something that's not common. I mean, when you buy your home, you get your homeowner's policy. Flood insurance is something that you have to get an additional.
Right.
And so what we're doing here is we're trying to get people to understand, just to know your flood risk, and if you need it, to make sure you're properly protected.
Right.
So I guess if your house gets flooded, and if you don't have that extra insurance, and I'm not sure if you even know this, I guess because it depends on individual policies, but it may not cover that, right?
No, your typical homeowner's policy usually does not cover flood. It does not cover flooding. So if you have basement backups are different from if a sewer backs up in your home, that's different from actual overland flooding. And the big thing with us is we're not a flood manager, we're not a flood authority, we're not a flood control agency. And so people do call us when it does flood, and assume that we're going to come out and help them.
Right.
We will come out and make sure that it's not the sewers, but if it's a basement backup, that's a whole different issue than overland flooding.
I'm so glad you're here because it is very confusing. But it's almost like you have to define what a flood is, right?
Yes.
If a sewer backs up in your basement, you would call that I have a flood in my basement, but that's not necessarily a flood.
No, that's not necessarily a flood because that's water coming back in from the sewer.
If my sump pump breaks and the water comes up through my basement, is that a flood?
It would be considered a flood because it's not coming from the sewer system.
Right.
So it's not a backup per se, but we have overland flooding, which is the floods that you visibly see.
Right.
That's when the creeks and streams overtake the banks and they cover the streets.
The more traditional flooding.
Traditional flooding.
Right.
But yeah, you're typically, I mean, like last year we had with all this rain that came down, we had a lot of backup calls. We would respond to them, and I think over 80% of those were not an MSD issue, which meant that when we would check the sewer system, there was not an actual
the sewer wasn't the
sewer
problem.
wasn't the problem.
Right.
It was more of either groundwater or something of that effect.
Right. Yeah. So once you know what your level is, then you call your insurance company and say.
Yeah, you call your insurance company, and then you see what your options are. And again, it's not something that is it's not like a common getting car insurance.
Right.
It's like you need to know your level. I mean, flood insurance is something that you're adding on, so it's something that's not again, it's not cheap, but you need to. But in the long run, it's going to save you a lot more money. I mean, because the average claim is about $35,000 when you have a flood. When you have a flood.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess you're out educating the public. You're in charge of the sewers. You're not in charge of the floods.
Yes.
Right.
We are a sewer company. We manage the sewers.
Right.
And we make sure that the sewers are running free and clear. I mean,
and you're highly regulated.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything else we need to know?
No, I mean, the big thing is, I mean, with the flood, with the rain coming out right now, or with the rainy seasons,
Right.
actually it's unpredictable because we had snow the other day, and now we have rain
Right.
coming. I mean,
Right.
and it's just make sure that you're protected. I mean, and we're in the best position to educate the public on this. That's what we want to do. Make sure that people go to knowyourzone.org.
Right.
And there you'll find, I mean, there's like I said, there's a ton of information. We've got social media videos out there now. We've got information to go through to floodsmart.gov, and you just learn more about what your flood risk is.
We got Sean Hadley here too. Are you in any of those videos?
Yes, I am actually this year.
Good.
Oh, really?
It's
They,
about
they
time.
allowed me this year. Yes.
Yeah, it's about time. All right, good. Public information specialist with Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. What's the website one more time?
It's knowyourzone.org.
Knowyourzone.org. Thanks for coming in.